Shalom and welcome to Jerusalem Studio. I'm Erin filling in for Jonathan Hessen. With less than 100 days to go before its general election, Israel is facing military and security challenges, which refuse to wait until the voters have had their say, and the next Knesset either comes up with a new coalition government or gives up and calls for yet another round at the ballot boxes. With Palestinian disappointment over a lack of progress following the visit by U.S. President Joe Biden to the region, Iran steadily stockpiling highly enriched uranium, and Lebanon's Hezbollah organization threatening a balance of power in the eastern Mediterranean Sea, Israel has to walk a fine line between deterrence, defense, diplomacy, and determination to avoid deadly surprises. How is it managing this task? To analyze this, we are joined by Amir Oren, TV7's editor-at-large, host of Watchmen Talk and Powers and Play programs, Ambassador Danny Ayalon, who is the co-host of TV7's Middle East Review, Powers and Play panelist, and former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., and Reserve Colonel Reuven Ben Shalom, TV7 Powers and Play panelist, cross-cultural strategist, and an associate at ICT International Institute for Counterterrorism at Reichman University. Thanks so much for joining us today. Amir, let's start with you. Can you please give us an overall assessment of the current situation?
Erin, allow me to bring up a name from the past. Naftali Bennett. Do you remember Bennett?
I don't know. It's a little tough.
He used to be the prime minister of Israel until a couple of weeks ago. Now Yair Lapid, who used to be his alternate PM, took over from him. And Bennett slowly recedes into the past because he's not standing up for re-election, not even to the Knesset November 1st. So the first question Israelis ask themselves is, does it matter? Is there any discernible shift in the Israeli national security and foreign policy domain in the move from Bennett to Lapid? And the short answer is no. First of all, because there are no hotspots on the table right now. Of course, there are all the usual suspects, which you mentioned, at least partly. There are others. But right now, there is no conflagration. The other reason why, as of now, there is continuity is that the defense minister, Benny Gantz, is still in place. And he is actually the only minister, the only key minister, there were other marginal ones, but the only key minister to have stayed on from the Netanyahu cabinet, which left office a bit more than a year ago. Mm-hmm. And Gantz, as a former Israeli Defense Forces chief of staff, reflects the basic continuity in Israeli security policy, which is drafted by the military. Of course, the military respects the political echelon's authority, but because politicians usually don't want to come up with any program which may leave them exposed to criticism, they wait for the generals to come up with a draft program, and then they give their seal of approval. So to sum it all up, right now, as we head into the elections, no initiative is expected. Israel will not be proactive. It may have to react as the need arises.
Ambassador Ayalon, do you agree with that assessment? No major policy shifts? And a second part of the question is, if you can get to both of them, how difficult was it for U.S. President Biden to come at this time of transition in Israel? Did he have to walk a fine line?
Okay, I'll start maybe with the second part of your question.
Sure.
It wasn't too much of a, let's say, of a perplexion or any embarrassment or any kind of unusual diplomatic step to come over here. You know that for a long time we say that it doesn't matter who occupies either the White House or the Prime Minister's office here. The relationship is between the countries, and they are very, very deep and strong because it's a natural relationship. It's a natural alliance. because of the shared values, because of the shared interests, because of the same
I'm going to
interests.
interject. Do you think it's just as strong today as it was at the time that you served as ambassador?
Oh, yes, I
Good.
think so. I think so. And we see it even during during Obama, which was not the most, did not show the most affinity towards Israel. This was when the pact, the unprecedented all-time high defense cooperation between the two countries happened, the $38 billion of military aid, which I do not call aid. I think it's part of the partnership, of the defense partnership between Israel and the United States. And here, Erin, I think it is very important to stress that this is a two-way street. There is no doubt that Israel is the junior partner here, but the United States benefits a lot from this partnership, benefits a lot from the support, and Israel being its most dependent ally in the region, and I would say at large. Today, when Israel is a very strong country, strategically, technologically, economically, certainly it's a great added value. It's a palpable value to the United States.
Danny, I never saw you give a coin or a bill to a beggar and then tell him, but remember, we are partners.
It's the story.
Look at what we give back. We also give a lot back.
The story is about the fly on the back of the elephant, looking back and says, see how much dust we raise here. So no, but I think it is true. And certainly when the United States now is overextended, they need regional partners and they need dependable, strong regional partners. And Israel is one like that. So in that respect, Biden actually, Biden's, if you look now into American politics a little bit, Biden's main, I would say, agenda was out of his own political needs in the United States, economic needs in the United States. So for him, it didn't really matter much who would welcome him here. And of course, when you have this cloak of countries and not personalities, it helped him to really not to have to break his teeth in explaining why he was here during such a political upheaval here in Israel. Now, going back to the first part of the question, I think Israel, and I will see it quite carefully because, I don't want to show too much arrogance. We know arrogance can breed a lot of danger. But Israel sits very pretty these days in terms of our geopolitical situation. The Abraham Accords, created a kind of an alliance, informal alliance with the Arab countries, the Sunni Arab countries in the Gulf. We have an eastern basin of the Mediterranean alliance with
Greece and Cyprus,
which is also very, very strong. Mm-hmm. And we have energy sources today that Israel has become a net exporter of energy. And yes, of course, there are quite a few flies in the ointment. One, of course, is Iran. But I do think, if we have time, I do think that we do have some good answer to the Iranian threat. We have Hezbollah, and the most important thing to me with Hezbollah now is to guard our new drilling project in the Karish reservoir of natural gas, which is on our economic borders, but is claimed by Hezbollah as it is in the Lebanese, and they are threatening to attack it. But even here, I think we have remedy for that, and I think Hezbollah and all the other foes of Israel are quite deterred.
Colonel Ben Shalom, can you expand a bit on the U.S. military partnership when President Biden was here? In fact, he spent a great deal of time going out to see Iron Dome anti-missile batteries, also checking out the iron laser beam that shoots down incoming projectiles. How important was that for him to see these things?
Well, the visit itself, and for the president to see or not say, I don't think that's the most important thing. I think, by the way, visits like this are blown out of proportion. Of course, the significance of the visit, the messages are important. But to go and say that the Jerusalem Declaration is a historic document, that's an overstretch.
Can you tell our viewers what the Jerusalem Declaration was?
We'll continue to do a lot of good stuff together, and we're great friends. I think that's what it says.
Very concise.
And again, it's important. Our relationship is very important. Don't forget, I'm an Israeli, but I'm also an American, and I love both countries, okay? And the partnership is amazing. And this visit was good, and there are good messages, and everything's wonderful. And yes, we collaborate very strongly in missile defense. So, of course, he will see that, because that's one of the most important points of our collaboration, of R&D and operational deployment these days. But I think I already understand. Politics put aside. Politicians are ridiculous. Okay, now let's talk let's talk about this issue.
Says the military guy.
Yeah. No, I love diplomacy, but come on. Politicians now are being ridiculous. So for many, many years, we have a very important collaboration. It's a strategic collaboration. The militaries work hand in hand in an array of fields, from missile defense to intelligence sharing to logistics. Israel relied on this for many years. The Yom Kippur War, I think we were saved by the Americans, right? With what we call the air train that came here, Operation Amir, Oren can help me.
Nickel grass.
Nickel grass, thank you very much.
Galaxies.
And for the last 20 years that I've been involved with this, it's a gradual progress. Everything's structured. We know where we're going. We have this outlined, and we go and move forward with it. Presidents come, presidents go. They're always for it. They're always pushing it. And like we just said now, even when Israelis said, Obama hates us, Obama was with us 100%. And at the time, when he was in office, I could say back then, our partnership has never been better. And it's still the same thing. It's important to say that Israelis, we love to say we will defend ourselves by ourselves. I think even President Biden worded that. But of course, when we say that, by ourselves, with our great partner, the United States, and remember that a lot of the technology that we invent is funded by the United States.
Right.
Mutual projects, it's hand in hand.
And also Biden visited with American soldiers stationed here as part of the missile defense system. He had a photo op with a combined Israeli and American contingent in one of the Air Force bases.
We have boots on the ground for many, many years. There's a site in Israel where American troops, there's an American flag, and they're here for what?
Sure.
To protect us and to help us. But I do have to say that the collaboration is such that the United States benefits immensely in the Middle East. Many thousands of American lives were saved in their campaigns in the Middle East. And it's documented. Our technology, our information, or I would say our mutual ventures benefit the United States strategically. So certainly this is a hand-in-hand collaboration.
What can you tell us, Amir, about the recent visit by the new CENTCOM, the U.S. Central Commander, who is General Michael Kurilla? What can you tell us about his visit to Israel?
Yes, this is his second visit in the very short time he has served in this position. He was well known to his Israeli friends and colleagues from his earlier posts in the Airborne Division and Corps, and with JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Command. Israeli paratroop and commando officers have cooperated with him. He is considered a great friend of the Israeli Defense Forces, but he is in charge of 20-some countries in the region, and he must see how this interoperability and collaboration are seamlessly meshed with other militaries. And he has both the Fifth Fleet under Vice Admiral Brett Cooper and other elements of CENTCOM. He has, for the second time, visited with General Aviv Kochavi, the IDF Chief of Staff. They focused, at least officially, maybe unofficially, they went into some clandestine projects, but officially they focused on anti-drone, anti-missile defense, the so-called air defense architecture, in which Israel gives its knowledge and technology to certain Arab Gulf countries in order to better prepare against the common threat Iran. But also Israel has been operating in Syria, which is, again, under CENTCOM's area of jurisdiction, of authority. Israel has been operating both against Daesh, ISIS, as well as Iranian proxies and militias. And this is, of course, in close coordination with the United States. So at one time, there was this joke that the United States has EUCOM, which is the European Command. It has SOCOM, which is, of course, Special Operations Command. It has CENTCOM, and it has JUCOM, which is the IDF. So the joke is more serious than it sounds. Israel is now really in cahoots with the U.S. military.
That's insightful, to say the least. Ambassador Ayalon, let's take a step back and go to the Israeli internal political situation. Since we're coming up on elections in November 1st, which will be our fourth in 3 years, can you tell us, first of all, many people are very perplexed. Why did our second to last Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, why is he not running? Amir mentioned that earlier. Why is he stepping back from politics, the highest office, and to leaving politics? Will the fact that Yair Lapid got his chance to head the government, even briefly, will that help his chances? He's the head of the Yesh Atid centrist party. And also referring back to something Amir said, that Benny Gantz is the only significant minister who's remained in place since the Netanyahu era as defense minister. Will this help him at the ballot box? He's the head of the Blue and White Party. What are we going to see?
Yeah, well, just by the virtue of your questions, you understand the imbroglio here of the political scene. I would say Naftali Bennett, he's not running because his political achievements were very abysmal. He was a good prime minister, very businesslike, but he didn't take care of his own party. His party just fell apart. So he has no supporters. He is a leader without any support. I guess he also took some private polls to show that he has no chance, maybe even to go over the threshold. So he could have been very embarrassing for him.
Is that because of his perceived compromises? His party, Yamina, is considered to be right of the right. So is that why?
Because he was perceived very right, and he governed from the center. All his right-wing supporters left him, but he did not gain any left-wing or any central, which clung to their own leaders, whether it was Gantz or Lapid or whatever. So I think what he did from his own perspective is, let me go on a very high note, so maybe I'll have a chance to come back. Maybe they will miss me in a few years. This is
that could be a good strategy.
I'm sure. Yeah, he's probably working for the long run. He knows what exits are. He made his own exit in high tech, so he's a multi-millionaire. So I guess he followed suit with the same practice. When it comes to Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz, right now the polls show that neither of them can really form a government without the other. I would say that the elephant in the room here is Bibi Netanyahu.
Yep.
Bibi Netanyahu, if you look from any angle, he is, I would say, the jam for the entire impasse in Israeli politics for the last 4 years. Because a government could have been formed with Likud and the other side as a national unity government had it not been Netanyahu. Because half of the country, at least, does not want to see Netanyahu in power, because they see him as corrupt, as somebody who takes care of his own interests before the interest of the country. However, still in the polls, Likud is the largest party. However, it's not a game of parties; it's a game of the blocks. And here, if the Likud cannot get 61 out of 120 members of Knesset, you need a majority to form a government, then we may, go into the next elections, unless something will buckle. My understanding or my thinking is that if Netanyahu cannot form a government, it's going to be his last elections, because the religious parties who are his natural allies and bank on all their funds from the government on a government that they are staying in the government, they will not want to stay outside of government for another term. And if they opt out, some people in Likud will also have the courage to say, you are the problem, and otherwise we could have had a government long ago.
Interesting point. That's very interesting to think
I
about.
want to protest, and I know I reflect Danny's view too, the fact that you did not mention Avigdor Lieberman, Danny's old
I actually
boss.
thought about that.
Well, Lieberman is certainly behind the scenes. He is an arch politician that can really make things move around. I think that there is a good chance, at least 50% chance, that the next government will be led either by Gantz or Lapid, depending who pushes or pulls better than the other, in the same kind of paved road that was blazed by Naftali Bennett.
And just to clarify for some of our viewers, yes, when you were serving as a deputy foreign minister, it was as part of Avigdor Lieberman's Israel Beitenu party.
Mm-hmm.
And he still is a steady force in government. He's current finance minister.
Steady force, but declining in power. His ambition was to become prime minister. He has a lot of nefarious baggage, excess baggage that he carries. His main, I would say, supporters are the veteran Russian Jews, who immigrated to Israel, but they are also dwindling in terms, matter of age. He will continue to play a part, but only secondary. I don't think he will ever come up to the top position, although Amir would love him to be.
Yes, but one doesn't get everything. But Lieberman's second most ambition was to become prime minister. His top priority was to oust Netanyahu from the prime ministership.
True for many politicians.
For the time being, he's satisfied with that.
Reuven, let's come back to you for a moment and touching again on something that was mentioned earlier. Can we explore more deeply what is the significance of Israel's military question here, transition from EUCOM, which you'd mentioned, to CENTCOM?
For many, many years, Israel has been aspiring to transition to CENTCOM. The perception here was that since CENTCOM does business in the Middle East, and they're responsible for all the Arab countries, and our enemies are there, our challenges are there, our fights and our wars are there, we should be under the umbrella, the AOR, Area of Responsibility, of the combatant command that deals with that area, and not the European command, even though we like to be perceived as Europeans. What's the connection? So we would do roundabout business with EUCOM, doing business in the CENTCOM AOR. I'm sorry for all these acronyms. So we've been asking and pleading and bringing it up once in a while, typical Israelis. And then one day the Americans said, yeah, you know what, that's a good idea, in Trump's administration. And since then, Israelis are happy. This is finally realizing our dream. But of course, it does make sense operationally. For many years, we have been working with CENTCOM. When I was in that field, I would work with CENTCOM. They just didn't have a name tag because no one could know that CENTCOM were here. Of course, they were here. Now they're here overtly. We're under their area of responsibility, doing very good collaboration. All these visits now are to build the infrastructure, build the fieldwork, build the plans and the procedures that we will have to operate someday when the time comes. And that time may come soon.
But there's an additional point here. Just like the United States is a two-ocean power, Israel too has two seas, the Mediterranean and the Red Sea.
The Sea of Galilee.
And the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea.
And the Dead Sea. We've got
yes,
4 seas.
Of course. And there's a puddle outside of this
the Dead
office.
Red,
And
the
that's
Med.
so for many years, Israel's Eastern Mediterranean front was more important, and Israel wanted to take part in NATO. Now, the NATO commanding officer, the commander of the forces in NATO, is dual-headed as the commander of EUCOM. It is always an American officer. So during that time, and until recently, Israel made an effort to have an association with NATO in one form or another. The Turks, along with other problems, prevented it. So eventually Israel decided that if there is a threat from the West, it will probably be assisted by the Sixth Fleet. But for the time being moved to CENTCOM is better.
Now, just this past March, the previous CENTCOM commander, General Kenneth McKenzie, made an estimation that the threat that was posed by Iran, this is just past March, is graver than ever. Is this view shared by the current one?
Yeah, but
Kirilla?
Yes, but he also Kirilla also had a similar statement during his confirmation hearings. But what they mean is not the nuclear threat. On the nuclear file, they support the administration's move to renew the 2015 JCPOA,
yes,
the deal. What they referred to was the fact that Iran has proxies, has Shiite militias in Syria, in Iraq, and other places, in Yemen, fighting American and Israeli interests. There, the United States and Israel are on the same page.
Did Israel's initiative and its objections to the JCPOA of renewing it, of restarting it, which during the talks in Vienna, did that have any effect on the fact that no final agreement has yet to be reached?
I don't think so. I think all the keys are in Tehran, and basically the reason we do not have another JCPOA or an agreement is because the Iranians intransigence, or the Iranians actually, raising the bars, making more and more demands. The Americans would have loved to sign the agreement and just take it out of the table. It's certainly a political on the political agenda of Biden. He doesn't need another headache. He would like to solve that problem, but these are the Iranians. So Israel may think that it has an influence, but none whatsoever, just like we didn't have any in the 2015.
Okay, quick answer from each of you. What can we expect until we get the formation of a next government, which would be sometime after November when the election takes place? Will Hamas try to make a point, like the firing of 4 rockets recently, or Hezbollah step up? Are they going to try to take advantage of our political instability?
I think because we're talking about leaders with interests, including their own PR, I think yes, we could see that, but not necessarily a war. It could be what we call days of battle. I think they could challenge us. They think that at a time like this, we're more vulnerable. We'll also see Israeli leadership that at a time like this, in election time, they will want to show how prominent they are, how strong and forceful they are, and then they'll go to the media and they'll say, you see what we did, we acted, that happened just this week.
Now, they don't know how it will end, so maybe they'll be cautious.
Maybe.
I think this is also part of the calculation of the Hezbollah and Hamas, knowing that these guys here today will have to show force because they are seen weak. So counterintuitively, I think they will keep quiet now until the elections.
We'll find out. Well, that does bring us to the end of this episode. I'm Erin Viner, and I'd like to thank today's guests, TV7 Editor-at-Large, Amir Oren, Ambassador Danny Ayalon, as always, and Colonel Ben Shalom. Thanks for being with us. And thank you, our audience, for joining us. We hope to see you next time.